Welcome to the Parenting Coach Podcast with Crystal. Over 7 years ago, I felt like I was stuck in this cycle of yelling and reactivity in my parenting that I did not want to be in, but I didn't know how to get out of. I knew how I wanted to parent pretty much exactly, and I'd spent hours reading books, but not finding a way to show up how I wanted to. That's when I started to turn inwards. My own inward journey was what my family needed. As I changed, everything around me changed. My kids' meltdowns decreased by 90% or more with no medications or therapy. I stopped yelling, sibling fighting became almost entirely non-existent, and I found that this change flowed into other areas of my life too. My intuition increased. I started to run my life and business in a very different way. If this sounds like something you want to, I can help. Join me each week as I share my journey, including the laughter, fun, hard times, and tears. Tune in for support, guidance, and fun conversations with my favorite experts, and really anything else that interests me too. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. Today is a guest interview. I know we've done a couple monologue episodes, but we have a couple guests coming up and they're all going to be great. They're going to be fabulous. This one's actually very different than my normal. So if you're listening, we're not talking about emotions or feelings or thoughts or connection or any of those things that we typically talk about. But I think it'll be a great episode. And it's something that I specifically deal with in my own family. So I'm actually really excited to interview Ben today. So Ben, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Yes. Hello, Crystal, and thanks for having me. I am a dentist in New York. I have been practicing for 31 years. But for the last 2 decades, we've been doing earlier treatment on children between the ages of 3 and 12, all geared towards helping the jaws grow a little better, which helps the teeth kind of go to place a little better. But it's also connected to breathing and sleeping. And so that's kind of the reason we're on today, to have a nice conversation about early intervention to help a child, as opposed to what the traditional model that everybody's familiar with is, hey, when you're 11 or 12, get some braces for a couple of years. Everybody knows that model.
Yeah.
So we're happy. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So I have a kiddo. He's 11 right now. And I even my 15-year-old too, when he was about this age, went to 3 different dentists with 3 different treatment plans. It was just let's do braces here, let's wait and then do braces, let's whatever. And feel the same way as you do, where braces kind of seem like a not necessarily an end result. I mean, unless you have a kiddo that is going to wear a retainer forever, for sure. My boys are not going to wear retainers forever. They'll forget, right. They'll, not keep up with it. And I've met adult people who've had to have braces again because they didn't wear the retainer long enough and their teeth kind of went out of shape. But what I'd like to dig into first is why this actually matters. If our, the breathing and the sleeping, and before we pressed record, I actually wrote this down because I thought the quote was so good. But you said almost every symptom in the body comes from breathing well. It's all connected to our breathing. So let's start there. Tell us about breathing and why it's so important.
Yes. So it turns out there's a very big difference between nose breathing and mouth breathing. And that's really where it all breaks down for a child. So we're going to work our way in, because most parents look at their children and recognize, hey, those teeth are crowded. They're not where they belong. My child will need braces. If you back up to the baby teeth, most parents would look in their child's mouth between 3, 4, or 5 and say, ooh, those baby teeth are all together. There's no spaces there. And so when we see baby teeth that have no spaces and then permanent teeth that have crowding, we think braces. But braces really just address the symptoms. The teeth are a symptom temporarily. Like you mentioned, if you don't wear your retainer, they shift back. So what we're getting towards is we see teeth that are crowded and would need braces. But now we recognize, if the teeth are a symptom, what's the real problem? The jaw size. Well, our upper and lower jaws, when they're too small, our teeth don't fit well. So in the baby teeth, it looks like baby teeth together, no spaces. In the permanent teeth, it's just crowded teeth. Well, if the jaws are too small, the crowded teeth is like our 10th problem, because way before that, when the jaws are too small, it affects how we breathe. So a human being is an obligate nasal breather. So we are built to breathe through our nose. It's the only way to get what I'm going to call fuel. So fuel, a human being needs fuel. So we got to breathe. We need the air, fuel, number 1. Number 2, we got to drink water, because water is the best fuel in the liquid category. And then we have to eat food, nutrition. So air, water, nutrition. That's how we fuel ourselves. Well, it turns out if we're breathing through the nose will prepare that air perfectly for the lung. Then the lung gets to do its job, making the exchange. So it's just an exchanger. Brings in the good, gets out the bad. And that maintains a perfect balance. So the body gets fed the right oxygen throughout everywhere. Everything runs well. Well, when your jaws are too small, it becomes difficult to breathe through the nose. If we can't breathe well through our nose, all of a sudden we start to mouth breathe. And it is automatic. It's not a choice. Basically, your brain knows the air's not flowing well through the nose. You know what it does? It separates the lips. And it's not like jaw hanging open, dragging on the ground. It's just that your lips are apart. Lips apart means the air leaks in to supplement because the nose doesn't breathe well. But the mouth was not built to clean and filter and prepare the air for the lung. So breathing through the mouth brings in air into the lung that the lung can't deal with appropriately. So now we don't get the best exchange rate. We get less of the good in and we get less of the bad out. So now we're giving ourselves bad fuel breathing through the mouth. So the smaller jaw size that we see in the teeth being crowded or not fitting really means the smaller jaw size, we have less room to breathe through our nose and we have less room for our tongue to live. And our tongue needs a perfect chamber to live in so the air can get right behind it. So now we've got this breathing issue. So I like to give parents like an analogy on the breathing, nose to mouth, because a lot of people don't understand how unhealthy it is to breathe through your mouth.
That's what I was going to ask, actually. My next question was going to be like, why is it so bad? Like, we're getting our air in still. Like, what is the difference between the nose and the mouth breathing, and why is it so significant?
Yeah. So the difference is when we're breathing through our nose, it's usually driven from the diaphragm moving up and down. So when the diaphragm moves down, it helps pull the air to the bottom of the lung. You get to use your whole lung. You get a better exchange. But mouth breathing changes the pattern of breathing to the chest muscles. So now the chest muscles start to expand and contract, and the air doesn't go all the way down to the bottom of the lung. So we're not really utilizing the whole lung, changes the exchange rate. Not to mention the fact that when the air comes in the mouth, it doesn't get cleaned or filtered, warmed, humidified, and no ingredients get added to it. So one of the big ingredients that gets added when we breathe through the nose is called nitric oxide. And once people start digging into nitric oxide and its benefits, it's tremendous. So what nitric oxide does is, it's called, and the professional word is a dilator, but it means open. So dilate is open and constrict is tight. But the nitric oxide, when we breathe in our nose, that goes into the lung and it basically opens all of the little tubes to get all the air further in. Better inhale, better exhale with the exchange. But nitric oxide is also antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal. So it kills everything on the way in. So you only breathe in beautiful air. So children who nose breathe predominantly have much less infections in the ear, nose, throat, and lung category than children who mouth breathe predominantly. They are seen with the ear, nose, throat, lung infections, including asthma and all this stuff. So the mouth breathing brings in all the bugs that we're not really handling on the way in, whereas breathing through the nose cleans it all. So what I teach parents is, if you had a high performance race car, so whatever your favorite race car is, we'll say Ferrari. If you had a Ferrari, it would require a specialized gasoline. You're going to put the proper gasoline so that car can not only perform on the track, but be at peak performance and then win the race or have an opportunity to win the race. That's nose breathing in a human. So your child is a Ferrari, but nose breathing is the right fuel. You breathe through the mouth. Take your Ferrari and put average low-grade gasoline in it. If you put a Ferrari sports car on a track with an average low-grade gasoline, it might drive around the track. It is no way going to reach peak performance, and it'll start breaking down sooner. That gasoline is not meant for that car. That's mouth breathing in a child. So all of a sudden, the symptoms start to creep in. And the difference really happens while we're sleeping, in that breathing through the mouth, your brain doesn't like it. And when your brain knows that's not good breathing going on, you're not breathing well through your nose, you're breathing through your mouth. Now your brain does other things to try to improve your breathing while you're sleeping, but that's what ruins the quality of sleep. So mouth breathing takes a child out of proper sleep cycles.
Right. I've heard that before too. I knew that it affected your sleep somehow, but I didn't know how. I was like, I know that mouth breathing at night's not supposed to be great, but tell us about why that is.
Yes. So now that we've got the air coming in the mouth, we're not getting the right exchange. It's not being cleaned or filtered. Now your lung is technically struggling. You don't feel any of this because you can breathe through your mouth with comfort. But when the air comes in your mouth, it's not doing the right exchange rate. Your brain knows this is not good. So it starts to take over. It wants to improve. Now, our brain has a job at night when we're sleeping and breathing through the nose. We are in a proper sleep cycle, and there are different stages you go through. And in those stages, when you're breathing well through your nose, what your brain is doing is cleaning itself and the whole body for the rest of the day. It's like basically doing a rejuvenation center all night long. The problem with mouth breathing is that the brain shuts off the cleaning mechanisms. It can't do both at the same time. So now your brain can no longer clean itself or you. It has to focus on the poor breathing. And the things that your brain does at night to try to improve your breathing are kind of very common symptoms that parents might not know are connected to poor breathing, which we're going to go through in a second.
Yeah.
Once your brain takes over and starts to do things to help you breathe better, it's not cleaning you anymore. Now, if you don't get your brain cleaned and yourself cleaned overnight, it's like waking up without having slept. It's what they call sleep fragmentation, but what'll register more for parents is sleep deprivation. It's like being woken up every so often at night and then getting up the next day and being expected to perform and be happy and ready and well regulated. Instead, you have a dysregulated child the next day because the brain spent its time trying to help you breathe better instead of cleaning you and setting you for the next day.
Do they not get into the same sleep wave cycles? Like, all the different layers of sleep?
Yes.
When they're mouth breathing, is that kind of what's happening? They're not getting into the deepest REM cycles?
Yeah, they can't hit the cycle. So it's like a normal sleep cycle has a stage 1 and a stage 2. And when they draw it in a graph, it looks like a staircase.
Yeah.
It's like a little staircase. Stage 1, then stage 2, then stage 3, and then stage 4. And then you come up to REM a little bit. You do a little time in REM, and then you come back and you repeat it every 70 to 90 minutes. So there's this beautiful sleep cycle that exists. And that's what is involved with cleaning you and resetting you for the next day. However, you really can only be in a proper sleep cycle if you're nasal breathing all night. The moment you have some mouth breathing going on, your sleep cycle gets fragmented, and now it's all broken up. So they say sleep fragmentation because we're disrupting a normal sleep cycle. And you could call it like sleep deprivation because now you're not getting proper quality sleep.
Yeah.
We talk about this to parents because there's 2 categories for good sleep. One is quantity. That's just the right amount of time. At different ages, we know from the pediatricians, like, oh, your child should have 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours, So the time frame. But the crazy part is that the more important part's the quality, because a child who is mouth breathing at night has no quality of sleep because they're not in their sleep cycles. They're not getting reset and rejuvenated. And the brain that doesn't clean itself is really a disaster the next day. We'll go over that in a second. But if the quality is wrong, there is no quantity of sleep that can make up for poor quality. So it wouldn't matter if your child slept 14 or 16 hours. They're going to be the same symptom struggles going on because the quality of sleep is missing. So we've got to get the quality of sleep back through the breathing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was imagining the nights where I sleep all night long, except I'm not actually sleeping. When you're waking up and you look at the alarm clock and you're your sleep's just not very good. And you're you're rested and you can handle the next day because you're, a fully developed prefrontal cortex adult. But imagine just sleeping at night and your body, never being able to get into that deepest cycle. It's got to affect for sure behavior, which we're going to talk about, but it's got to affect other systems also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the systems that's involved is the digestive system. A lot of kids are struggling with digestive issues today. And the biggest reason is because we were talking about that sleep fragmentation. Having a proper sleep cycle is being in a rest and digestive state. So when we have proper sleep cycles, the digestive system's running very well at night. Things along the digestive system are moving along if we're in proper sleep cycles. Once the brain shifts its mode over to helping the breathing, the digestive system loses its ability to do the digestion at night. So children have anything from reflux to stomach aches, constipation, diarrhea. Anything that is digestive will be the result of poor breathing while sleeping, really at a number one cause. It's not the spicy wings. The spicy wings are not doing what's happening to the digestive system. It's really your brain's not focused on that. And the reason this is all going on, that poor breathing, a lot of parents start to get it when you put the pieces together. When your brain is in the other mode of trying to help you breathe better, it's called fight or flight. When you're protecting yourself from bad breathing, anything that the body does to protect itself is fight or flight. So that's the sympathetic nervous system. Basically, the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, is supposed to be off when you're sleeping. Yeah. We're supposed to be in the other one. The other one's called the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest mode. Yeah. It turns out you can only have the parasympathetic mode on and running when you're in nasal breathing all night long. You have proper sleep cycles through nasal breathing. You have rest and digest running. Your brain cleans itself and you for the next day. But as soon as you're mouth breathing, you are in fight or flight. And that sympathetic drive shuts off all the things that are supposed to be cleaning you for the next day. So probably I mentioned some of the symptoms. I should list those. What would parents see as
that's what I wanted to ask you about. Right? It's interesting that you talk about the nervous system because you said it's impacted behaviorally, right? So not only are they not getting good quality of sleep, but their nervous system's actually dysregulated while they're sleeping at night and it's not resetting in the way that it needs to. So it makes sense that during the day you're going to see behavioral issues. But before we press record, you had listed off a bunch of other issues besides just behavioral. So I'd like to hear more about what the behavioral issues might look like, but then also what the other kind of physical symptoms you see are connected to this mouth breathing.
Sure. Yeah. So the kids who are mouth breathing at night, some of the symptoms parents might notice that are related to mouth breathing would be restless sleep, lots of movement, bedwetting, grinding your teeth, waking in the middle of the night. You can't even stay asleep the whole night. You wake up during the middle of the night, having night sweats, having night terrors. So that's a list of things that go on when you're in fight or flight all night long. Those are things you might witness, and parents struggle with that list, between bedwetting and nightmares and night sweats and the restless sleep, thrashing around, waking up, grinding your teeth. Like all of these things are going on with a lot of children. And really they're all tied to the poor breathing. The poor breathing makes the brain do those things to you to improve your breathing. So when you're thinking about restless sleep, moving around, a child who doesn't breathe well, when I say the brain is focused on trying to help you breathe, the restless sleep, we call restless sleep, it's really the brain moving your body, repositioning you to get better airflow. So I like to talk about unkinking the hose. You take the hose out from the shed and you pull it all the way out and you go to spray it and no water comes out and you look back, oh, there's the kink. What do you do with the hose then? You rattle it around and you circle it and twirl it and you shake it till you get the kink out, right? That's a child trying to breathe. The kink is the smaller airway from the smaller jaws. Sure enough, what your brain does is it starts moving your head around. It'll tip you back. It'll turn you around, moving the head around to try to get the air in and out better. When that doesn't work, when that's not enough, now the body starts moving, the legs start moving, the arms start moving. Everything we describe as restless sleep is basically your brain trying to unkink the hose and help your air get in and out better. But it isn't so much a kink as it is smaller jaws, which is why restless sleep is repeated all night long, every night. Kids can't get a break from it because there's really no good spot where the airway's big enough. The jaws are too small. Grinding the teeth is another big symptom. Your lower jaw gets moved side to side. So grinding the teeth is this lower jaw going back and forth. When your lower jaw is going back and forth, so is your tongue. It's right in there. So it turns out when you're moving your tongue side to side, the air gets by better. So the crazy thing is your brain knows if you're not breathing well, you're better off grinding your teeth because the air can sneak by better when your tongue's a moving target. So moving the lower jaw around, shuffling the lower jaw, we call grinding your teeth. It's really your brain trying to help you get the air in and out better. So grinding the teeth is a direct result of poor breathing, underdeveloped jaws. So this list of symptoms that parents might struggle with, bedwetting, night terrors, nightmares, night sweats, all of this related to poor breathing is being in sympathetic drive or fight or flight all night long. And fight or flight produces all of these changes. Cortisol is being released instead of growth hormone. And that child's in a world of trouble. Now, behavior. We go right to the behavior because with sleep fragmentation and poor breathing at night, it is very difficult to behave well during the day because now you're dysregulated not only at night, but now it spills into the daytime. So there's highs and lows. So a traditional pattern would be in the morning, it's very difficult getting up to get going because you've had such a bad night's sleep. The morning is, I am exhausted. I didn't sleep well. So typical description would be we have a slow start. It's slow start, getting out of bed, moving along. We're slow.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden there's a point in the day where it kicks in. And then you've got hyperactivity. So the child goes from high to low. Hyperactivity, they may crash again for fatigue in the afternoon, maybe. Some don't. The hyperactivity goes all the way until midnight. They can't fall asleep because they got so much hyperactivity, they can't even fall asleep. But the dysregulation is the child going high and low instead of being balanced. So it sets in motion what people call ADHD. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Or disease, but this is a bunch of letters. And when you look at the list of symptoms that make that up, because it's diagnosed by symptoms over time, school, parent, they get together, they look at the symptoms. Does the child have this many symptoms for this many months? Oh, you have this. Take a closer look at that list for parents who are listening and think about the things on that list. And the things on there are really a list of sleep deprivation symptoms. If you deprive someone of sleep, you're going to hit those lists. You're going to hit that. This is a sleep dysregulation issue. So these kids who don't breathe well, there's no chance to behave during the day because you're timing it where I got to go to school and sit still. Impossible. Because in the morning, you can't get going. So you're in that sluggish mode. But what happens is your body knows, well, the sun is out. I'm supposed to be awake because we have this circadian rhythm, awake during the day, sleep at night. Well, during the daytime, when the sun comes up, your body is primed to get going, but your brain is still trying to finish the cleaning job. So the crazy part about in the morning is your brain is saying, wait, I didn't clean yet. You can't get up and go yet. It makes you want to stay asleep longer. So the slow routine in the morning, but the rest of you knows, no, it's daytime. The sun is up. We have to go. What happens is you get dumped in extra ingredients to get you going. So the adrenaline and the epinephrines come a little higher to wake you up and get you out the door because the brain is trying to keep you asleep, but your body knows, no, it's daytime. We have to get up and go. And all of that times to when you get to school. Now you're at school and you're bouncing off the walls because you got all these extra ingredients. You cannot sit still. You cannot focus on anything because basically you just got charged by a lightning bolt. And now I got to run, and I can't. So it makes for this bad combination during the day.
Have you seen, because you've been doing this for a while now, that as you start to help people and these issues start to go away, that over time, the ADHD symptoms will lessen? Have you noticed that in your own practice?
Yes. So I've been treating children now for over 2 decades. And in the 2 decades of time I've been treating the kids, it is very common that in our pattern of getting started earlier, treating the cause, the underdeveloped jaws, when we start to grow your jaws earlier and then retrain your muscles and breathing, nasal breathing, proper tongue muscle, and the tongue has to be resting and functioning properly. The lips and cheeks have to be resting and functioning properly. When you get all of that balance going with jaw growth, you breathe better. When you breathe better, you sleep better. So it has been my experience over the 2 decades to see the behavioral problems fade away. Children that were told you need medication never get it. Children that got medication can come off medication as the symptoms fade away. Bedwetting goes away. Ear infections go away. The waking up at night, having night terrors, those go away. Night sweats go away. Basically, the child begins to breathe through their nose, sleep through the night, and the parent will report the symptoms are fading away. Some kids are luckier. It could be days to weeks. Other kids, it's weeks to months. But the point is, once you get the jaw growth back and your muscles behaving properly, you start breathing better and you heal. It's a pathway to heal the child. So I have been lucky enough to experience healing in almost every single medical category you could name, based on 2 decades of helping the kids early, as young as 3. We get started as young as 3 when you notice the symptoms are there.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I have a couple more questions about it. As you've been talking, I've been thinking like, what about adults? So adults that maybe didn't have this happen, right? Like I don't know if I mouth breathe. I probably do, but I can hear my husband do it sometimes. And so I'm curious about the like mouth breathing thing for adults, because I don't know if there's like, if it's like too late by then, because you're saying like 3 to 12, probably because the jaw is a little bit more malleable. So you can do things that help it grow still. What about a person who already has a fully developed jaw?
There are opportunities. And so when you're thinking about kids, just like you said, the jaw is softer and more malleable. You can get involved. It's easier to help a child, but it doesn't mean there aren't choices for adults. In the adult category, we have non-surgical interventions and surgical interventions. And for an adult, it's probably more appropriate to get a sleep test to see like, well, how bad is my sleep? Because if an adult had sleep apnea already, you probably should get like a CPAP machine while you're pursuing the opportunities to grow your jaws, because a CPAP really treats the symptom, not so much the cause. But yes, there are doctors around, and you would basically be looking for a doctor that treats adults in the sleep category. And so whether they're doing non-surgical or surgical opportunities, there are offices that do this. We're less common. Most of dentistry is still tooth focused, which isn't a bad thing. We need to fix and help the teeth too. But this category we're talking about, airway and sleep and breathing, it's more foundation focused. It's more about the jaw size and shape. So yes, there are choices for adults out there. You just have to dig a little bit.
So more than just mouth tape, because I've heard of mouth tape, have not tried it yet, but that's more just kind of fixing the symptom, not necessarily the cause of what's happening.
Well, yes, I'm not opposed to mouth tape. I don't want to come across as anti-mouth tape. But if the jaws are too small and you struggle to breathe well through your nose, taping your mouth shut is working against the sympathetic nervous system, which is opening it to let the air in. You really have to have a clean nasal passage. If air can flow in and out of your nose easily, mouth taping is a good choice. It'll support the lip closure at night. But if the air's not really flowing well through your nose, you don't want to force bad nose breathing. Because it's bad nose breathing that triggers the lips to separate. That's part of the first fight or flight step. If your brain knows the air's not going through my nose very well, I should separate your lips to allow leakage here. So yes, mouth tape comes in circles where your lips can separate if it gets bad enough. So it's kind of protective. It's not like it's a bad choice. For me, it's more of the mouth tape alone as the only opportunity or only choice would be more of the treating the symptom. I'm going to force my lips to stay together versus, hey, maybe I should pursue jaw growth and development of some sort first, or pursue all the options and then choose.
Okay. The other thing is, how common is this? Like we're talking about like smaller jaws or whatever, like, are there people that have bigger jaws and people that have smaller jaws, or are we just looking at like everyone has too small of jaws?
I know. And it's so bad to say all. I know that. But I'll say it this way. How many children do we know grow up, turn 12 years old, and all their teeth are right where they belong, perfect, don't need braces? But we have to go one step farther. Will those children go to 18 or 20 and their wisdom teeth will come in and they'll have 32 teeth without anybody doing anything? Because the child who's growing really well is going to go through all of these steps and end up turning 20 and have 32 teeth right where they belong with no help. Where's that child today? So that's a way of me saying, I think every child is underdeveloped. And so if you can't develop your jaws big enough to hold 32 teeth where they belong without intervention, you're not growing well enough. But when your jaws are small and you have baby teeth together or crowded adult teeth and your wisdom teeth are not going to fit, the jaws being small affects your breathing. So there's really no way around having smaller jaws with good breathing, because the upper jaw does dictate the size of the nose on the inside. That chamber is based on the upper jaw growth. If your upper jaw grows fully, you get a big chamber to breathe the air. It goes through nicely. If your upper jaw doesn't grow well, you can't get the air through your nose as well. You become a poor nasal breather. But when both jaws are underdeveloped, there's no room for your tongue. So the nose doesn't do well because it's smaller inside. And with no room for your tongue, when you close your mouth, it can only be one place, backwards. But when the tongue sits backwards, it blocks the air from going behind it.
Why does everybody have too small of jaws? I mean, maybe you don't know the answer to that question.
I'm glad you asked. I have the answer. I have the answer. So the fascinating thing is that eventually most people ask because, well, since I see this everywhere now, crowded teeth and bad bites, and no one has fully grown jaws. Why do we have smaller jaws? It turns out hundreds of years of anthropology research have that answer. And so once you start digging into anthropology research, you learn that it's a very simple answer, but I'll build it out a tiny bit. It's the early soft food. So the simplest answer I can give in the 1 minute time frame would be early soft food, baby food or mush. Every culture, pre-industrial, pre-Western living transitions to harder food earlier. So the cultures go from breastfeeding to hard food, and the harder food, the consistency between 6 and 9 months old is when they notice it starting. And it coincides with an infant who can hold their head up and grab and bring to the mouth. If you can meet those two criteria, you can like throw stuff in and chew and gnaw on it. Well, 6 to 9 months old, when that gets going, you start having your normal, and that normal culture's diet is without processing, preserving, or refrigeration. Nothing is pureed or blended. There's no spoons or forks or knives. You grab and you gnaw. The early gnawing works the musculature, and the muscles grow the bone. So in a human being, the upper and lower jaw bones grow by muscle activity. So you're not programmed to grow your jaws by your genes. You're programmed to have jaws by your genes. How they grow is determined by the early diet. When your early diet is hard, like the pre-industrial cultures, and it's everywhere, the entire world pre-soft food has fully grown jaws, and all the grave sites and all the archaeology and all the anthropology research shows everybody's got big jaws and 32 teeth with no bad teeth. Incredible. But as soon as the soft food starts, cultures start to trade. You're basically taking baby steps to become industrial Western living, trading the food, processing, preserving, softening the food. Then what we say malocclusion, or small jaws and bad teeth, that increases rapidly. And so it only takes 100 years to have most of the population with malocclusion.
Okay, this is interesting too, because I have an aunt who lived for a short time in, I think it was Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not totally sure, but I'm pretty sure that's where it was. And she said that like nobody gets their wisdom teeth out there. She was like, people thought it was like so weird that like, they were like, what? People in North America just like get these teeth out. So are you saying that if you are able to catch it early, get the growth proper, the jaw gets bigger, that you wouldn't have to get your wisdom teeth out?
That's correct. If your jaws grow for the entirety of the human race, wisdom teeth weren't extracted up until industrial Western living. The entirety of the human race, all of the skulls and all of the grave sites that have ever been studied by anthropologists have 32 teeth. They all have 30. So it was 99% of the population has 32 teeth. Where are we today? We're 99% have crowded bad teeth because of small jaws. And so the early soft food is the trigger. That starts the problem off right there. And then with industrial Western living, we've added a couple of things to the mix that don't really help out. And so bottles and pacifiers are the second and third kind of stones thrown at the glass. So sure enough, early soft food is the trigger for weaker muscles, because when you have softer food going on, the muscles don't need to be active or strong. So the muscles of your body are based on what you do with them. So like, let's say, if you lay down bedridden for 3 weeks, you'd have no musculature left. It would all go. Yeah. But if you go to the gym and you worked out with a trainer for 3 months and you were pushed like boot camp, wow, those muscles change fast, right? Well, the muscles adapt to what you're using them for. Early soft food, muscle weakness, bones don't grow. So in a human being, the weird thing is that the bone yields to the muscle. If your muscles are weak, your bone doesn't grow as much, which is why the upper and lower jaws are smaller and the teeth are crowded. So yeah, in a perfect world, we would get back to model of an early harder food would be nicer to work that through. But it was with natural living, it's easy. Today, it's not easy to do that because
there is a concept around that. Like I did that for some of my kids, which I think they call it baby-led weaning, but it's basically like instead of feeding them the pureed stuff, you just give them like chopped up bits of things and they kind of just touch it and play with it and eventually get some of them in their mouth. So I think there is some transition to like, not using the pureed stuff, but that process makes sense. My next question is, I have a kiddo that has really bad congestion. So his nose is always, so if you do something that's why I didn't really do mouth tape. Cause I'm like, well, if we do mouth tape, then how does he breathe or whatever? So
fair enough.
And this, I guess, takes us to my last question too, would be, how do you fix this issue? And can you fix it in somebody who has really, clogged up nasal congestion stuff happening?
Yes. And so that is the progression. So the body is like a use it or lose it kind of a mode. And with the nose, as soon as we have some mouth breathing, it gets worse over time. But basically, the less that you use your nose, the less you breathe through your nose, the more it closes off. So it's starting to kind of close off on the inside. That's what we call congestion. So it's hard to get that back. So this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So just like we slipped from nose breathing towards mouth breathing and have congested nose, it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a one-day thing. Yesterday, I breathed through my nose with ease, and today I clogged up and I can't breathe. It's usually a slow deterioration. We got to earn it back. So one of the things you can do early on to start earning back that nasal breathing is to clean the nose more often. So we talk about nasal hygiene getting ramped up, which means learning how to blow your nose appropriately, like trying to get the stuff out of there, but then also getting nasal spray in there. And I'm a big fan of natural sprays. We don't like to put the chemicals and the pharmaceuticals in there, getting simple saline or the clear products have a little xylitol. That's a healthy choice. If you use a simple saline nasal spray, but what we ask kids to do is pretty much every hour when they're at home. So you have to work at keeping that nose clean. You clean your nose every hour on the hour at home until it starts to improve. And that could take days to weeks. So you blow your nose first, then you put the nasal spray in there, which loosens things up, and you blow again. And if you did that every hour for a while and the days are going by, you're
saying clean your nose out every hour, like as far as the nasal spray. Okay.
Yeah, the kids who are congested should be cleaning their nose every hour. So if you're really congested, you want to clean your nose every hour of the day. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to work towards a pattern of just doing it twice a day. We would love to clean your nose twice a day, morning and nighttime. That would be ideal. But in the beginning, when the kids are really kind of congested and they're not breathing well through their nose, and now they're already conditioned to letting the mouth do the breathing, we have to earn that back. It's like training for a marathon. You can't just say on Tuesday, hey, the New York City Marathon is this weekend. I'll go do it. No, it's going to take you months to prepare for a marathon if you'd like to jog through it, of course. But, I want to be a nose breather full-time forever now. Not exactly. We're going to have to earn it. So nobody gets to decide, I'll just close my mouth now and keep my lips together and I'll breathe through my nose. No, we have to earn it. So getting it clean requires a lot of attention early, and then we can work towards the, once or twice a day as the routine. But we've been treating kids for 2 decades in my office. The good news is that so many kids had so much benefit in getting involved early. We were combining 3 things: the nasal hygiene, products and techniques, get that nose clean.
I'm glad you said that saline too, because we've been recommended the steroid spray, and he's been using it for so long. And I'm like, this can't be like a healthy thing to continuously put in your body. So yes, saline spray.
Yes, I would be okay for a week or two. Like if you wanted to use that, get a jump start. I know the steroid will shrink a little quicker, but try not to use that long term, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but then you got to get out of that. And the other stuff works just as well. You just have to do it more often to get the nose breathing more. As the nose breathes more, it starts to open up, like it starts to heal. It wants to do it. It's like running more. As the days go by, the weeks go by, you're more conditioned to run more. So the 3 things we were doing in the office for 2 decades are the nasal hygiene and then what we call guidance appliances. Guidance appliances are built to use between 3 and 12 years old. And these guidance appliances can be worn for an hour a day plus overnight. And it looks like, at a glance, it would look like a sports guard. But it's redesigned. It's designed so that when you wear it, you have to breathe through your nose. So it starts to retrain the breathing. So we do the nasal hygiene and we put our guide in. We want to wear it an hour a day plus overnight to start retraining the nose to do the breathing. When your guide is in, you can't breathe through your mouth. So it really starts to put the focus on, I'm going to get that air through my nose and regain my nasal breathing. But when the guide is in, it also repositions the tongue appropriately. A big part of jaw growth and development is the tongue in the palate up high and working up and down. kind of compressing into the palate with a good, like chewing swallow, we would call it. Well, when the guide's in your mouth, your tongue has to rest appropriately up high and it also has to swallow appropriately. So kind of the shape of the guide on the inside redirects your tongue to function properly. Proper tongue function grows the jaws. Your tongue is your body's natural jaw grower. So we want the tongue back. We lost it with the early soft food. The early soft food puts the tongue low and it's a drinker. Give me the mush. No problem. Tongue's doing nothing. So our jaws don't grow. We need the tongue back. The guide gets the tongue back into action, working to grow the jaws. Also, when the guide is in, it pushes away the lips and cheeks. So the tongue that got the soft food that did nothing, it stayed low to drink. Well, the lips and cheeks start working overtime. They help force the food down. So we don't want the lips and cheeks working overtime against us. That's growing the wrong way. That'll shrink us instead of grow us. We need the inside strong and the outside not involved. So when the guide goes in, it pushes back on the lips and cheeks so they're not working against the jaws or teeth to grow wider and forward. So basically, the guide helps you nose breathe and helps redirect your jaw muscles to be appropriately functioning so your jaws can grow again.
And when you say 3 to 12, do you mean, like, I'm only curious about this because my 11-year-old is almost 12. Can you use it for the duration of the 12th year? If he's almost 12?
Okay. A 12-year-old can still have benefit. Like a 12-year-old has benefit. 13 is getting a little too late because the jaw growth and we're passing into puberty and we're maturing. So the guides have better action when the bone is still in a growing phase. So from 3 to 12, better age range for the guides. The third item, so nasal hygiene guidance appliances, and the last item is myofunctional therapy. Myofunctional therapy, and you've probably come across this at some point already. Yeah. It's becoming much more popular, and it should be like household talk every day now, is that myofunctional therapy is very important for every child because really when we talk about early soft food causing this disaster, the early soft food gives you the weaker and dysfunctional muscles. And the weaker and dysfunctional muscles need to be retrained. And the guides can help. And the myofunctional therapy is basically physical therapy for the head and neck, reworking those muscles so they behave properly to grow the jaws. So myofunctional therapy is about breathing better, growing your jaws through muscle work, and also with posture. So all of this is put together to help that child grow. So for 2 decades of using nasal hygiene guides and myofunctional therapy, treating people from all over, kids from all over, a couple of years ago, a few people like myself who were doing this were few and far between. We were like, there's a lot of people who have no access to this. I got people flying all over to be doing this in my office, which is crazy. How do we solve for access? We built a company called Toothpillow to do just that. So Toothpillow is a new company, but it is based on things that have been used for decades. Guidance appliances have existed for decades. Just very few dentists use them. Myofunctional therapy has existed for decades, and now it's just starting to become really popular, and every child should have that, by the way. But when you combine these things, Toothpillow was built to deliver it remotely. A parent in the middle of nowhere that has, there's no dentist that does these guides or does early growth and development. They just do braces at 11 or 12. Well, now you have an opportunity to do it remotely. So Toothpillow, there's a website, toothpillow.com. A parent can go there. There's a lot of information in there. All of the things we're talking about are built out, pretty in depth there. Good education. But there is Is My Child a Candidate tab. And what we do is we ask, there's a full list of sleep breathing questionnaire items in there. We ask all about the child's history and for parents to write everything in there that they might be struggling with or what's going on so I can learn about the child. The symptom category, basically. And then the next category is the photographs. So we built an app, and in the phone with a little silhouette, you can see like what kind of pictures I need of your child, like a face photo, a smile, a profile picture, also the upper and the lower, and a big cheesy smile. If a parent uploads photos to me, I can screen that child remotely and determine, that's a child I could treat remotely. So we built measuring devices that a parent can take pictures with to scale so I can send them the right guide. So we have all of this built to basically solve for access and affordability. So now a parent anywhere could see if their child qualifies for remote treatment, especially if there's no one local. If there's someone local, you should go to them because there's nothing wrong with going in office. We have no problem with that. We just want every child to have an opportunity. Yeah. You don't have an opportunity from 3 to 12 when you're 13. And so we just want everybody to know what you have available to you. And if there's no one near you, we're happy to help you. If there's someone near you, we're happy you go to them. So now we've got this child who I can treat remotely. Just to give you some numbers, because not everybody qualifies. I can't do every single child can't be treated remotely. We have some that need to go in office. So roughly percentages, and it follows the 2 decades I've been in practice. From 3 to 7 years old, most children can be treated with the remote pattern. Nasal hygiene, guidance appliance, myofunctional therapy. And myofunctional therapy is done via Zoom, just like you and I are doing now. The myofunctional therapist one-on-one meets with the child. The parent can sit there and they demonstrate exercises they're going to do. And then the child repeats it back. So it's just like being, a foot away from the trainer at the gym. Do it this way. And then you do it that way, So if a parent finds us, you're going to find about 99% of the kids from 3 to 7 can benefit from this, and it's an opportunity for them. But from 8 to 12, it drops. I can only treat about 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the kids remotely. There are 8 to 12-year-olds that are so narrow and so crowded and have such poor breathing and sleeping that they need expanders. So there are some kids who need expanders. So when I have to deny a child because I know, Toothpillow is not going to get you there, you're too severe, we then try to locate who's the best practice around you that's been doing expanders for a long time. We try to give you guidance to find the right office, because some offices say they're using expanders, but they don't really do a good technique. And other offices are very skilled at doing expansion very nicely. So we try to help you find the right office, because your child does need attention, but what they don't need is braces. Mm-hmm. Braces address the teeth, and it's a jaw size issue, which is why most kids who are getting braces at 12 years old, their symptoms don't go away. They're still poor breathing, poor sleeping, struggling with the list of things we talked about. But when you grow the jaws and you get your breathing back, that's when your symptoms go away. So we don't treat the symptoms, like all these things we're talking about and what I've observed go away. I don't treat bedwetting. I don't treat ear infections. I don't treat behavior. It just so happens I'm treating the underdeveloped jaws. So treating in our lane, we treat your underdeveloped jaws. And when you have the right jaw size and you breathe better, you heal. So symptoms downstream go away. So we built Toothpillow to basically solve for access. And when you take away going to a dental office, which has a number of expenses to run, it turns out this can be half the cost. So it costs about half to do this remotely as it does to come and see me in my practice to do this. And now we have we have thousands of kids in treatment across the country who didn't have access to this beforehand, and they're doing very well. We built, there's a nice Instagram page to follow for Toothpillow. At Dr. Ben Miraglia is mine, where you can see all of these things we're talking about built out even bigger, and the website. So I would encourage parents to take a look at it, only because now at least you can learn enough to know that, hey, all these symptoms I'm struggling with on a daily basis are rooted in a cause where I could address early and give my child a chance. And when you learn all about it, it can be a match for you or not, but we are definitely here to help those who are interested in getting early attention.
Yeah. One last quick question is myofunctional therapy helpful for adults, or is that past the time when it's effective?
Yes, it's wonderful at any age. So at any age, you can retrain your muscles of your jaw to behave better. And when they're functioning properly, you breathe better. So even as an adult, we were talking about non-surgical and surgical interventions and things you can do with the jaws. But the number one item would still be myofunctional therapy, because as soon as you work those muscles again, and it's not unlike going to the gym. At any age, if you went to the gym, you would be benefiting yourself. Even if you let it go for a long time, at any age you go to the gym and you get your trainer and you do it right, you can make an improvement. And the same thing at the jaw level. So yes, myofunctional therapy has wonderful research showing a big change in breathing and sleeping with doing myofunctional therapy. It absolutely helps the jaws. We're a big fan of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been an information-packed session. So thanks for coming on and telling us all of that, like even the history, anthropology, and whatever. You're obviously very knowledgeable with this. And I think this will be really helpful for everybody. I know it is for me. I'm already thinking oh, what am I going to do next? So thanks a bunch. And people will connect with you. For all of those listening, we're going to have all of these links in the show notes that you can go check out. And you can go follow him on Instagram and check out the Toothpillow situation and see if it's something that would be helpful for you. And I'm excited to see changes that potentially would happen in my own kids with this. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure, Crystal. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, I would love for you to help spread the word by getting this message of support and guidance out to as many people as possible. So text it to your best friend or tag me on Instagram and share it. Leave a review, rate it, subscribe it, or follow on your favorite platform. Send me a DM on IG letting me know which parts have impacted you or what you'd like to see on future episodes. We'll see you next week.